Welcome back, friends! Thank you so much for watching my videos and supporting the channel. Let's dive right in!
Hey everyone, and welcome to This Explainer. Okay, today we are taking on what is honestly a truly monumental task. I mean, just look around you. You'll see an absolute explosion of animal life with drastically different structures, shapes, and sizes. Scientists have actually described over 1 million species of animals so far. 1 million! With numbers that staggering, you can't just memorize them all, right? We desperately need a system, a way to assign a systematic position to every single newly described species. Basically, we need to classify them.
Think about it like this. Imagine you've got a massive, completely chaotic library containing over 1 million books that have just been dumped right on the floor in front of you. You wouldn't just start stacking them randomly, would you? No, you'd look for fundamental features, rules of sorting, like fiction versus nonfiction, or alphabetizing them by the author's last name. Well, biology does exactly the same thing. Despite the wildly different forms animals take, there are specific, fundamental evolutionary rules regarding how their cells are arranged and how their bodies are literally built from the ground up.
Okay, let's dive into this. Here's our roadmap for today. First, the rules of sorting. Second, the simplest animals. Third, the rise of worms. Fourth, giants of the animal world. And finally, spiny skins and notochords. All right, part 1, the rules of sorting. This is where we establish the blueprint of life. So our very first rule is symmetry. We basically have 2 main structural plans here. First is radial symmetry. This means any plane passing through the central axis divides the organism into 2 identical halves, kind of like slicing a pizza. Simple organisms like coelentrates and stenophores use this setup, but as we move up the ladder to more complex creatures like arthropods, we see bilateral symmetry. This is where the body can only be divided into identical left and right halves down a single central plane, very much like your own human bodies. And of course, some animals like sponges just don't follow these rules at all and are mostly asymmetrical. Next up, we've got to look at the cellular level, specifically the embryonic layers. This represents a massive structural upgrade in the animal kingdom. Diploblastic animals arrange their cells in just 2 embryonic layers. You have an external ectoderm and an internal endoderm, with this jelly-like, undifferentiated layer called the mesoglia sandwiched right in between. But triploblastic animals, they upgrade to a crucial 3rd germinal layer right in the middle, called the mesoderm. And this 3rd layer is a huge deal because it paves the way for much more complex internal structures. And that middle layer actually leads us directly to our 3rd rule, the coelom. The coelom is essentially a body cavity located between the body wall and the gut wall. But crucially, it has to be lined by that mesoderm we just talked about. Animals without it are called acoelomates. Some sort of have it, but in scattered pouches, making them pseudocoelomates. But the most complex animals out there possess a true coelom. This provides a safe, cushioned space for really complex organ systems to develop and function. And this master map brilliantly illustrates exactly how all those rules are applied. It's like a giant puzzle coming together. You can see perfectly how symmetry, cellular organization, and the nature of the coelom create these really neat, distinct branches. We start with cellular-level organisms at the top and branch all the way down to the highly complex bilateral coelomate phyla at the very bottom. Moving right along to Section 2, the simplest animals. Here we're exploring the cellular and tissue levels of organization. First up is phylum Porifera, or as you probably know them, sponges. These mostly asymmetrical marine creatures are incredibly basic. I mean, they don't even have true tissues. They're just loose cell aggregates. Instead of complex organs, they rely on a truly fascinating water transport system. Water just flows right in through these minute pores called ostia, enters a central cavity called the spongocoel, and then gets flushed out through a large opening called the osculum. It's a remarkably efficient plumbing system that handles all their food gathering, respiration, and waste removal, and it's all supported by a skeleton made of spicules or spongin fibers. Now, what's really interesting is how phylum Coelenterata, also known as Cnidaria, leveled up. They actually exhibit the tissue level of organization. This means cells performing the exact same function finally grouped together. Many exhibit this really cool umbrella-shaped free-swimming form called a medusa. They're radially symmetrical, they're diploblastic, and they actually get the name Cnidaria from these unique, specialized stinging capsules called cnidoblasts, which they use for defense and, of course, capturing their prey. Closely related to them are the phylum Ctenophora, commonly known as sea walnuts or comb jellies. Just like cnarians, they are exclusively marine, radially symmetrical, and diploblastic with tissue-level organization. But note the key differences here. They move around using 8 external rows of ciliated comb plates. And even cooler, they are highly marked by bioluminescence. They literally emit light, making them some of the most mesmerizing glowing creatures you will ever see in the ocean. Section 3. The rise of worms. Introducing organs and pseudocoeloms. Enter phylum Platyhelminthes, the flatworms. Guys, this right here is a massive evolutionary breakthrough. For the very first time in our journey today, tissues are grouped together to form dedicated organs. Flatworms are bilaterally symmetrical and triploblastic, so they finally have that third mesoderm layer. Now, although they are still acoelomates, meaning they completely lack a body cavity, they do possess highly specialized cells, like flame cells, which handle their osmoregulation and excretion. Let's move along and see how this builds incredible complexity. Look at the Ascominthes, or roundworms. They upgrade to a full organ system level and are pseudocoelomates, featuring a complete alimentary canal. But then, phylum Annelida takes it a major step further. These segmented worms, think of your everyday earthworm, introduce a true coelom and metameric segmentation. That's where their body surface is divided into repeated segments or rings. Annelids even boast a highly sophisticated closed circulatory system where blood is actively pumped through distinct vessels. It's a huge leap forward. Let's just re-anchor ourselves for a quick second with our master map. If you focus on the bottom branch under bilateral symmetry, you can see exactly how we've progressed. We moved from the acoelomates without any body cavity down to the false coelom of roundworms, and now we've landed squarely in the realm of complex animals with a true cocoelom.
Section 4. Giants of the animal world. We're talking arthropods and mollusks.
2/3. Over 2/3 of all named species on Earth belong to just one single phylum. Seriously, think about that sheer volume for a moment as we introduce our next group. It's mind-blowing. That massive group is phylum Arthropoda, the largest phylum by far, encompassing all insects, spiders, and crustaceans. So the crucial point is understanding why they are so incredibly successful. It really comes down to their brilliant biological armor. Their segmented bodies are protected by a super tough chitinous exoskeleton. Add to that their highly adaptable jointed appendages, which, by the way, is literally what arthropoda means, arthros for joint and poda for appendages. This combination basically created nature's ultimate survival machine. They've conquered the air, land, and sea using varied respiratory organs like gills, book gills, or even complex tracheal systems. Coming in at a very respectable number 2 is phylum Mollusca, the second largest animal phylum. Unlike the segmented arthropods we just looked at, mollusks have unsegmented bodies that are divided into a distinct head, a muscular foot, and a visceral hump. And they are incredibly unique. A soft, spongy skin forms a mantle over that hump, which often secretes a hard, protective, calcareous shell. Just think of snails or oysters. And for feeding, many of them use this fascinating file-like rasping organ called a radula. From giant octopuses to tiny apple snails, their anatomy is just an absolute marvel. Finally, Section 5, spiny skins and notochords. We are reaching the peak of complexity here. Check out the amazing phylum Echinodermata, which features familiar creatures like the starfish and the brittle star. Their name literally translates to spiny-bodied, thanks to an internal skeleton made of calcareous ossicles. But for sure, their most distinctive feature is a truly remarkable water vascular system that they use for basically everything. Locomotion, capturing their food, and respiration. But you want to know what's wonderfully bizarre about echinoderms? While the adults exhibit radial symmetry, their larvae are actually bilaterally symmetrical. And you know that bilateral symmetry in echinoderm larvae? That's a huge, albeit subtle, evolutionary hint. It perfectly paves the way for the next steps. Next, we find phylum Hemichordata. These are worm-like marine animals that possess a rudimentary structure in their collar region called a stomacord, which is remarkably similar to a notochord. And finally, we reach phylum Chordata. Animals in this group are fundamentally defined by the presence of a true notochord, a hollow dorsal nerve cord, and an incredibly advanced organ system plan. And that actually brings us to the end of our map. It's pretty amazing, right? By systematically applying those early rules of cellular organization, body symmetry, and the presence of a coelom, biologists have successfully taken the absolute chaos of over 1 million distinct species and organized them into this beautiful, logical, branching tree of life. We've journeyed a long way today, from the porous, stationary sponges, past the stinging cnidarians and those glowing comb jellies, up through the increasingly complex worms,
past the heavily armored arthropods and shelled mollusks, all the way to the highly sophisticated chordates. It's a breathtaking story of biological upgrades. So, I'll leave you with this. Knowing this massive, branching tree of evolutionary upgrades, where do you think humans fit into this incredible legacy? Just think about our own symmetry, our body cavities, and our nerve cords. Thanks for joining me on this explainer, and keep exploring.
That's all for today, friends. Keep asking questions, and I'll see you in the next one. Stay tuned!